East? That mom slapping her son around in Baltimore?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I get probably more nervous to speak to the MOPS women than I do standing up in a large auditorium, because I just know that I better not mess up. No.
And there's only one way out.
I know. Yikes. Anyway, great to be with you, and I'd like to do a little bit of teaching with you. Thought I'd do something different, and it's funny because it was about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I taught some of this stuff to a bunch of young pastors in the district. And I work with a group in our district where we mentor young pastors that come into ministry as they work toward ordination. And I did a segment on leadership style, and then I came back and I did it with my leadership team for Celebrate Freedom. And I always thought in my mind, this is something I would like to do at MOPS sometime. So I've had that in my head for 2 years, so maybe it's a me thing, but I hope you'll find it somewhat encouraging, for you as you think about your own leadership style. So I want to just tap into a little bit of that today. Today's an exciting day because I get to speak to you, and later this afternoon I get to pick up my riding lawnmower from the shop. It's been there for about 3.5 weeks, and I have not yet mowed my lawn. So it's looking pretty horrendous, but by far this outweighs the lawnmower, okay? I was glad somebody mentioned Moses a little bit earlier. I was thinking, I've still got my kids at home, but I don't want to be like Moses, who had his kids for at least 40 years, right? Yeah, they're wonderful, but there is a time that you kind of let go. Anyway, I want to say this, as I talk about leadership style today, all of us approach leadership from a pretty unique starting point. Not a single one of us is the same as another. We all have a different psychological profile or personality profile, which is really informed by things like intelligence, training, life experience, and life experience includes the modeling that we've received. Maybe it's been our parents, maybe teachers, maybe coaches, maybe employers. All those things have gone into our formation as a leader, but each of you are leaders. You might not think of yourself as a leader, but here I guarantee you, you are a leader. You just don't have the same style as the person next to you. We often look at the person next to us, and maybe they're very outspoken, and they get up in front and hold the mic, and you go, oh, they're a leader. But you know what? You're no less of a leader. You just maybe have a different style of leadership, so I think that's important to know. Each of us have what I would probably call a default dimension. As I talk about leadership style today, and I'm going to identify 8 different, by the way, there's papers up here for you that we can hand out. And I did something today. My typical teaching style is to have... Whoops.
Okay.
Yep, I'm fine, but is that okay?
Oh, yes, it's okay.
Hey, you can just tell them
this is all in part of the show.
You can just tell
That's
them
my
when they watch
leadership
the
style.
video. When they watch the video later, just tell them that I broke it, okay? No, I normally have blanks for you to fill out, and I thought, I'm going to make it a little easier for you. You're hardworking moms. I'm just going to write the information in so you can just listen. One thing I'm going to ask you to do, though, is not read ahead. You're all busy reading. Anyway, if you start reading ahead, you're going to miss out on where I'm at the time, and it's going to be really confusing. So, okay, Chris? All right. That was for you. Okay. I'm going to hook this mic up here. That way I don't have to hold on to it. Okay. How many have been interested in personality profiles, that kind of thing? Okay, 2 of you. Good. No, actually, more of you. I've been fascinated with that. My father, all my growing up years, my father was really into personality profiles. He did a lot of counseling. He would actually hold seminars for business groups. I remember one time he had like 16 couples from the police department as he talked about personality profile. Another time this was in Montana, he was advertised on TV for holding some big meeting up in Great Falls, Montana. So yeah, real famous when you get on TV in Montana. But I grew up around that kind of thing, just listening to him talk about personality, and as I got into ministry, it was really an area of interest for me. So most of my premarital counseling involves personality profiles, and often when I'm doing marriage counseling, I will do some personality profiles. Well, this is a spin off of a profile called DISC. The roots go way back to the early 1900s. Personality profiling, though, goes way back into BC times. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. So no, it's been around for a whole long time, and it's really the backdrop for a lot of what you would look at being your counseling or your psychotherapy and all that goes on. Why people do and why people behave the way they behave, and why are certain people like this and certain people like that. And obviously, in your leadership style, you're a combination of a lot of styles, but you're going to have probably a common default, and that's what I want to help you see today. If you did that online test, I hope you did. Nice, good, excellent. That is a step ahead. You guys are on the Way Ahead program by doing that, just because this is going to make a little more sense to you and hopefully confirm what those results showed you as you did that profile. Looking at your paper, I just have those two north-south and east-west charts up at the top. Just in a real general statement, let me say this as I work through 8 different parts today. If you look at the north-south axis, the north you have commanding, pioneering, energizing. These folks prefer environments where they act quickly and try new things. I might refer to these folks as the explorers. And that would be the north. In the south, deliberate, humble, inclusive. They prefer environments where they work methodically to ensure some kind of stability. And we might refer to those as the inventors. You know, they work very good alone and, you know, methodically. Then you have the west and the east. The west, deliberate, resolute, commanding. These folks ask a lot of questions and they like to solve problems. I would maybe refer to these folks as the detectives. And then you have the east, energizing, affirming, inclusive. They want to create friendly environments where everyone gets along and where people and ideas are respected. And I don't know, I tried to give them some kind of name. Maybe politicians. Maybe even better, small-town mayors, because they're like friendly to everybody and they love that kind of environment. Okay, politicians don't always bring the best thoughts from mind. By the way, a lot of my material came out of this book, The 8 Dimensions of Leadership, which is really a further investigation of the DISC style, and researchers have done a lot of work just to go farther into a 4-part, into an 8-part. So let's get as complex as we can, and confusing. But really, I think there's a lot of good things you can learn from this. My goal today would be that you understand your primary default dimension in a better way. And the second thing would be to challenge yourselves to something that's outside of your default. Now here's the interesting thing as you look at this circle, and if you already know what you are, let's say that you're a pioneering leader, what you might look at first is what lies directly opposite you of that circle. The pioneering leader probably has the most to learn from the humble leader. Yeah, and you're going to see that played out probably in some of the things that I say today. There will be at least one thing you can take away from this. And by the way, I have discussion questions, so you get to kind of converse about this later, I believe, in your small groups. And I've got questions at the end of this that you'll use during that discussion time. And that's where you might be able to identify one thing that you might start doing a little bit different to challenge you. Because you don't want to be just a one-dimensional leader. You want to be a multi-dimensional leader. I think it used to be as if you're lacking in something, find people around you that fit the bill. But you know, we need to learn to challenge ourselves and step out. That means me too. Because I fall somewhere on here as well. My personality profile is somewhere on that circle. And I realize what I need to do to challenge myself, and it is very specific. I might even say something about that later. But anyway, let's get into it, okay? Pioneering. Any pioneering leaders? Good, good. Ah, nice. Oh, this is good. I resonate with some of this, not because it's me, because I know somebody very well that fits pioneering leader. You know my wife. Inspires the group to go into uncharted territory. They're typically fairly high energy, outspoken. I have a friend who's a pioneering pastor, and he was a true pioneering pastor in the fact that he started his own church in our denomination, Snoqualmie Valley Alliance Church, which he's been there for quite a few years now. He is a pioneer. The guy always has something rolling in his head. He's always moving somewhere. You don't always know what he's thinking. He's a quick talker. In fact, I refer to him, especially when he's in a public setting, I refer to him as being highly caffeinated. Just because, man, he is just going. But I think things are rolling even faster in his head. They know where they're going, they have the vision, and they keep track of things in their head that's not all on paper, but boy, they know where they're going. They make a great salesperson, by the way. They actually believe in the product they're selling.
Can I specify? If
Yes.
they don't believe in the product, though, they're terrible. Like, we have to, fully believe in it, or there's no selling.
Yeah.
No matter.
Good point. Good point. They can sell snow to an Eskimo. I truly
They
believe
believe in
that.
that snow.
Yeah, absolutely. They could be, now I realize everything's got some positive and negative, and just because I share something negative, don't say, oh, that's me, okay? Of course, all the positive might not be you either, but anyway, they could be egocentric, because a lot of things is built around their personality. They use their personality and their charm to really build connections with people. They really do. And that can be a real good thing. But the egocentric part of it, there may be a slight bit of insecurity, and how to get over that sometimes maybe is to focus on our idealized self. Do you realize when you take a personality profile, I like how the disc does it. One column says, this is what I want people to think, and this is who I truly am. Our idealized self might be what we want people to think, okay? And we can sometimes kind of land on that so much and push aside our insecurities and fears, okay? I'm like that too. I like to project myself in a certain way. I want people to think about me in certain ways, for sure. Here's what we can learn, though, from the pioneer. Take risks. They take risks. They see the opportunity and not the obstacle. They're not afraid to step out of the box. And if you really want to challenge yourself more with this kind of leadership style, learn to think more about the potential rewards and not the negative outcomes. Some of us shoot ourselves in the foot because the first thing we think of is how it can't work. Okay? Pioneers, they're always thinking, let's go for it. This sounds exciting. It can work. Second one is the energizing leader, which is very similar to the pioneer. They're fast-paced, outspoken. They focus more, though, on the people side of the business, where I think in the pioneer it's more wrapped around a personality that drives on a goal. This person focused more on the people. They have that ability as a cheerleader, in a sense, to unite people and get them all stirred up and going all in the same direction. Come along with me would be maybe their mantra. We've got something fun ahead, and they're really about fun and adventure. They prefer, if they're going to learn anything in life, they're going to learn it by experience. Okay? And they invite others to join in the experience. My wife kind of is between these two categories for sure, because I see a lot of this in her too. She'll invite you to go skydiving, you know. That's my wife. They're not good necessarily with details, you know. They get excited about the event. Let's go camping. I remember this. Let's go camping. But you know, if you're going to go camping, you have to think about some things, don't you? Things, I mean, simple things like, well, are we going to have a tent? Are we going to actually put that tent up? Are we going to have food? What about water? What about a campsite? Okay. So, there are some of those details that sometimes get overlooked. The energizing leader is so much about and passionate about the adventure and the excitement of what we're going to do. They can monopolize conversations. They get very excited, dramatic, passionate. They can tend to embellish, yes, at times. But they're highly engaged in conversation and their interaction. Every interaction with a human being is an ability to build another friendship. That's the energizing leader. we can learn something from them. They have skills of rallying people around goals with energy and enthusiasm, and I think a lot of it is a result is they do generate a certain amount of energy and passion as they speak. And at the same time, they are very focused on you when they talk with you. They're not distant, they're not distracted. They really are paying attention to you, and they have that great skill of not only building friendships, but building networks, really, with people. The third one is affirming leader. They excel in building morale and creating a supporting environment. And these folks I would look at as being not only cheerful, but they pour into you with some real positive affirmation. I mean, if there's a person that comes alongside of you and really tells you how much they appreciate your efforts and your contribution, these kind of folks build you up. So they're not so focused on themselves. They pour into you the kind of affirmation, encouragement, where you walk away from them going, oh man, that felt good. Now, I want to say this. You might not be an affirming leader, but boy, make sure you got affirming leaders around you. Because boy, do they make you feel good. I always want somebody around me like that, you know. I was thinking of a person that I think is an affirming leader, though I think he's probably got other leadership style going on too, but Nathan Cookston. When I'm with Nathan, I went to Russia with Nathan, but it almost seems like every time I'm with Nathan, he is always affirming something in me. And it's kind of like, God, it's just hard not to like people like that, you know? But they're so encouraging, and, you know, those kinds of people, they don't necessarily have a high ego need. They really are willing to feed into your life and be an encourager to you. And I think we can learn a lot from them. They're a peacemaker. They're not pushy. They're very forgiving. You know, they don't want to call other people out on their problems if they see problems going. That could be a detriment, definitely. They love to keep peace. So you could say there's a bit of conflict avoidance going on. That can be a problem. But here's what we can learn. People probably work better through encouragement and appreciation than being driven or pushed. Have you ever had a boss come to you and really affirm you, giving you praise for the job you did? I'll bet you even work harder. Because that is such an esteemed builder, really. So we can learn, really, from this. When you value people and let them know, they will pour their hearts out in work for you. They definitely will. So be high in encouragement. I would say that generally to anybody, and I think Scripture would even encourage us in that for sure. The inclusive leader. This person is patient, gentle, soft-spoken, genuinely interested in the lives of others. They love what's familiar. Their comfort level is what is most predictable. So they will often build structures and routines in their life to help avoid chaos or surprises. Now, my oldest son definitely is probably in this category, at least some of it. He's got his routines. And for you to come to him last minute and say, you know, Dylan, I'd like you to mow the yard today. Guess what? That wasn't in his plan. If you want him to mow the lawn, talk to him 2 days prior so he can actually get it in his program, because don't knock him out of his routine. You know? Dylan, hey, don't do something spontaneous with a person like this. Don't adjust very quickly. Hey, Dylan, let's go to a movie. Well, no, Dad, because for one thing, I have to lift weights in the garage, and then I have to eat afterwards, and you know what? We're going to miss the movie, and frankly, he'll miss the movie. He could care less because he'd rather keep his routine. Okay? Don't tell him I'm talking about him, even though this is being videotaped.
You'll never know.
Yeah, good. Change is really threatening, pushes them out of their comfort zone. They do have difficulty speaking up about problems, especially if it means criticizing someone else's performance. They'd rather go with the flow than create some kind of tension through disagreement. They do show empathy, and really it's genuine, but at the same time there's that secondary motivation that might be there. They might just want to earn affection or be more likable. Well, which one of us doesn't want to be likable? I think we all do. They tend to internalize problems, hold in frustrations rather than bring it out and maybe have to deal with the tension of an upset relationship. So they do focus on harmony. There are times that they seem to lack passion. But I want to say this, they don't have their personality and their style all wrapped around their ego. They're not worried about being number one. In fact, they're so uncomfortable with power that they will downplay that and give it away to anybody that they see probably as better at it. You know, more charismatic, more authoritative. It's funny, I was talking with Dwayne when I was putting these notes together about a year and a half ago, and I'd just been saying to him, you know, if I was a senior pastor in a church, just knowing my personality, I would probably get a music leader that is highly, highly charismatic. And it was funny, I just made that comment too when I went back to working and I'm going over this and I'm going, wow, doesn't that really play out here? I would defer a certain leadership style to somebody else because I look at myself and go, well, I really don't have that. Well, maybe I need to challenge myself a little bit more in that way. Here's what we can learn from this kind of leader. They provide stability, they maintain a harmonious environment, they lead by example rather than force, and they do a lot more listening and thinking than speaking. Now you know Jamie Thompson, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, she's been involved with MOPS. Her husband, Randy Thompson, has been my dentist for years, and he retired just at the end of this last year. He's been a member of the church here. He's been an elder of this church. When he's in a group, I don't know if you know him very well, but he's a very quiet man. Very quiet. But when he speaks, everybody listens. Because Randy thinks before he speaks. He's not one that just pours out his thoughts unfiltered. He thinks through it. And I kind of see him fitting in this category, a very stable kind of person. No, doesn't exhibit a lot of passion, but when he speaks, you can tell that he's done a lot of listening, a lot of processing, and then he finally speaks. And so I thought he kind of fits in that area. There's the humble leader. They're somewhat of a perfectionist. They find it gratifying to wrap things up in a neat package and actually deliver that. They want and prefer security and stability over chaos and risk. They're likely to see the negative before the positive. Bring up a challenging new idea to the humble leader, and they're going to start listing off, this could be a problem, this could be a problem, anybody like that? I know we don't want to admit we're humble, right? I mean, that just doesn't sound right. Yeah, I was in the humble category. Actually, this is kind of the category where I fit. Some of the stuff in the prior one, but this I saw more of me in. But I don't want to say that in a praying term because that doesn't sound very humble, does it? Okay? And here I am married to an opposite. Notice that? And you might be married to an opposite. Now, that can create some tension, huh? A little? But it also can create opportunity for growth, right? Okay. There's a fear of rocking the boat, strong drive not to be the cause of trouble, also not to be the blame. Very cautious about expressing their feelings, and it may stem from a lack of confidence in the validity of their own inner experience. This is interesting. I have found myself in staff meetings when we're talking about something, I sit here processing, I've got something in, but I'm thinking, I don't know, if I speak up and say it, if I say it, it might sound really stupid. And I can tell that as I read this whole thing here, I think sometimes a lack of confidence may be in the validity of my own inner experience. So I don't share it, okay? People may not see your passion, and they certainly won't see your stress, because you do keep that in. You don't want to pull people into your problems and emotional landscape. And I can see that in the humble leader, for sure. They don't want to burden other people with their problems and, put them in a role where they're a counselor and have to listen to everybody else's problems. You think they really want to dump theirs around? They're dealing with enough, okay? Here's the interesting thing. Moses was a humble man. Something about the humble leader, they can doubt their ability to be a charismatic leader or the kind of person that's good at rallying the troops. And I wonder if this was a part of Moses' issue when God called him and said, I want you to lead the people of Israel. He says, no, I can't do that. And you know, the funny thing is he was very eloquent to speak. I can't talk. And the scripture also says in the New Testament that Moses was a very humble man. He doubted his own abilities more than God. Really. God never doubted in his leadership, but at the same time, God knew that he was going to give Moses what Moses needed. And I think that's what the humble person needs to know. You may not see these things in yourself, but God sees these. And if God calls you to something, he's going to equip you and give you all that you need for it. And that's what Moses needed to learn. He needed to learn that kind of dependence upon God. We can learn from humble leaders to be reliable. You don't always need to voice your opinion or sound off. Humble leaders are stable, especially in difficult environments. They typically have long tenures at organizations, which I think is kind of interesting. I've been here at Smoky Point now 18 years. That's somewhat of a tenure, especially when you look at average times that pastors stay in churches. So, deliberate leaders. Any deliberate leaders here? Well, haven't been asking that every kind of leader. No deliberate leaders here? Well, we'll talk about them anyway, because they're not in the room. We can say whatever we want. They have a strong analytical side. They like to get to the bottom of problems before they propose solutions. So obviously that drives them to do their research and be very well organized and committed to accuracy. They tend to like to work in private. They like their personal space. They don't want to pressure people. They don't have a problem speaking up when something doesn't seem logical, but at the same time, they're well organized and have done their work, so when they do speak up, they speak up with a certain amount of credibility, you might say. They consider themselves objective due to their logic. Analytical brain power types of things are really fun for these folks, so they really enjoy working on spreadsheets and doing computer games and doing puzzles and all that kind of thing. Yes. Some of you like doing that? Good. Okay. They know where they stand on issues and the logic that informs that position. You know, they have reasons for the things that they believe. I was thinking of, anybody know Darcy over in our church office? I think she fits into this category. She works very well independently, but boy, she enjoys some of that just personal brain stuff that I don't. Like spreadsheets, computer games, stuff like that. We can learn some things from this kind of leader. Certainly that being competent, doing the research. If you want to be knowledgeable and provide solid evidence for what you believe, you've got to do the research to have that credibility with people. Okay? So we can definitely learn something from that. Resolute leaders. They're highly determined, strong-willed, and persistent. They're a no-nonsense kind of leadership. They're willing to speak up when they see a problem. They attach a lot of shoulds in life, in their outlook. People should work this way. They should act this way. They should believe this. You know, you hear that word should a lot because they kind of have a high standard in terms of what they themselves believe. They have this internal sense to be competent. They have little patience with people that they regard as incompetent. In fact, when things go wrong, they are very clear. You can probably even visually see their disapproval. Okay? Nobody wants to admit, yeah, I'm a resolute leader. They're vigorous debaters. They're going to win. They enjoy finding flaws in other people's arguments and pulling it apart. Here's the interesting thing. Studies have been done on the neurological effects of some of these activities. In other words, when a person's debating and pulls apart another person's argument, they've actually seen through brain studies and brain scans that it lights up the cortex of the brain where a person finds a certain level of enjoyment. Isn't that something? There's an enjoyment and satisfaction of just blowing apart someone else's. God has made us so unique in the wiring. Can we learn anything from these leaders?
What if you're married to one?
What's that?
What if you're married to one?
Yeah. Oh, yikes.
Pray for us.
When you're totally opposite.
Yeah, yeah. We'll learn something in the next one that, you know, it is interesting. If you've got, if you try and match some folks like this on their level, you're going to create a lot more tension. And I sometimes think godly wisdom says, how do I really speak into this? And not give way to the old nature, but how do I actually engage in a way that's pleasing to God? That would be a prayer for wisdom for sure. Okay, but probably not matching a person in that context is the way to go, or you're going to have a knockdown drag out. What we can learn as a leader, if you want to get efficient results and high outcomes, you do need to challenge other people to do their best and hold them accountable. These kind of leaders will do that. And really, I think John Maxwell, he said, what gets inspected gets done. You know, there's a follow-up to it, and I think the resolute leader holds people to expectations. And, you know, as a parent, you know, when you start teaching kids how to do housework, you got to do a little bit of inspection to make sure it gets done, right? For sure. Learn to separate the emotional aspects. This is what they do well. I think they are able to separate emotional aspects out of that decision-making process. Because if we just go on emotion, we will have that tendency to try to make everybody happy. And sometimes you have to make hard, tough, unpopular decisions, and everybody isn't necessarily going to be happy. And if you let your emotions be the rule, it's going to be disaster for you. You're going to struggle a lot personally. So don't let it rule necessarily in the process. Yeah?
Is the resolute leader also highly critical of themselves?
See, that's what I always suspect when people are when they hold other people to a high standard, you can guarantee they hold themselves to probably even a higher standard. There's where the criticism comes in. They're probably very critical of themselves. They never are achieving probably enough. Yeah, good point. Good point. Did you have
I'm a resolute. That's where I felt. And yeah, I'm super hard on myself.
Yes, yes. Grace. That should be another talk. Grace. Okay. Next time. Commanding leaders. They're confident in their abilities and ideas, decisive, direct, they take charge of situations, they show a rare level of confidence. They might be viewed by others as arrogant. They're just saying, I'm seeing things for reality, the way things are. Any commanding leaders? Good. It's good I asked the question before we get into some of the later stuff. Okay. They can dole out criticism, but they don't take it very well. Okay. Sometimes they project so much power that it's hard to get any inside input or outside input in their direction. Competitive, they feel the need to win. Now, a real fleshly, say operating by the human flesh, commanding leader can even be a bully or intimidating. Now, here's the interesting thing. They have a hard time working with other people that they see as arrogant. Why? Maybe because there's a lot of similarity. You ever watch the show Apprentice? Celebrity Apprentice, or, you know, Donald Trump? I guess we're all into different kinds of things. I enjoy watching the show just for the sake of her human personality. And what you have is you have so many similar types, and they expect them to work as a team. And what do? They blow each other apart, basically. What an exciting show. Fun to watch. Glad it's not in my home. Okay, in my marriage, that'd be really tough. We can learn some things, though, from these kind of leaders, really. Somebody has to stand up and say, this is what we're going to do. You ever been in a group of people and nobody takes leadership? The result is you go nowhere. It's this kind of person that stands up and goes, okay, this is what we're doing, let's get going. And then if you can have some of these other leaders come along, like the cheerleader and the pioneer and all that, and join in, you got the whole group moving forward. Okay? So we can learn from this kind of leader. They know the goal, they know where they're going, they're not afraid to stand up and take charge when it's needed. They might even take charge when it's not needed. But don't limit your leadership by not stepping out. So we can learn something from these leaders. So, that was a real quick snapshot. When you go back to your discussion groups, I'd love you to be able to talk about what you saw as your default and why, what may be potential strengths and weaknesses. And then, if you were going to challenge yourself, and maybe like I said, looking straight across at the very opposite, what might be something you would pick out and say, you know what, this is something I can learn. This is something maybe I need to stretch myself and do differently, or challenge myself to do. I think that would be helpful. And pick one thing, don't pick a bunch of things. Change is slow, do one thing at a time. Okay? And,
Pastor, it seems like many of them, like 2 or 3, that you're not just one solid one.
Right.
Is that true? Or?
yeah, and I think that's why on number 1, I put your prominent default leadership styles, and I have that little S in the parentheses there, because you might see yourself as a combination of 2. So, yeah, feel free to identify 2 if that seems to be more where you're at. Okay? Can I pray for you? Do you do that here?
Yeah, we do that.
That's good. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much. I thank you for each one of these women, and you have created us as so unique in our personalities, and Lord, as we even express our personalities through this thing called leadership. I pray, Lord, that you continue to grow us, that you would stretch us, that we go beyond just being good enough to being great in what you've called us to do. May we be effective for you. And Lord, if there are areas of leadership style where you say, God, I need your help to overcome something negative, Lord, let us lean on your power and not our own. And Lord, we invite you to bring changes where needed. And Lord, I pray that you would bless these lives here today. I pray for their marriages and their families. And I pray, Lord, that you would continue to pour out your blessings upon them. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for being such a good class today. I didn't even see somebody raise the 5-minute warning thing. Isn't there a sign that usually goes up?
Yeah.
And I suggested that be taken to the weekend services.
5 minutes?
We'd
I guess we didn't keep going.
We'd get to lunch a little bit earlier. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bryce.
You bet.
What's happening? What am I doing with that? Oh, head on to group time.
Hey, wait.
Just kidding.
We have something really special. Can I ask you guys to join me in on something?
Yeah.
Today is Pam's birthday. She's my awesome mentor. Mom, can we sing her happy birthday? All right, 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Can you cut that out?
Happy birthday to